Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Birdview's weekly demo workshops. Today, we're going to be talking about the guest portal. So before we get started, just a few instructions to follow. For the duration of the session, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A chat box. Alternatively, towards the end of the session, we'll open the floor to any questions you might have. The session is being recorded, and a copy of the session will be shared with you towards the end of business day today or tomorrow. With that said, we'll take a look at the agenda for today. So by way of the guest portal, we're going to take a closer look at the benefits. Just to briefly highlight the benefits, the great advantage here is you are working with a free license and you are collaborating with your client, with a supplier, a vendor, contractor, a consultant, anyone that is potentially external to your business. Now, the caveat here is when you're working with a guest license, there is no ability to track time against the work that you've done. But it is important for you to be able to perhaps collaborate, seek approvals as part of your process of working on a specific task on a given project. And of course, again, it's a free license. When we talk about visual enhancements, we've tried to look to align the UI UX experience from a guest portal very similar to what you would typically see when you're working in your My Assignments page. So as a licensed user of the tool, we'll spend a bit of time sort of going through what those UI UX improvements look like, and you can share that with your specific guest user access controls. With that said, we're also going to look at some of the capabilities that a guest user can have when they are logging into the guest portal. The most important ones are the ability to be able to log in new requests or the ability to be able to submit on issues that you are collaborating with on the different projects. And then in terms of best practice, we're often asked, our support team is often asked the question, is there a way for me to be able to post a direct message to someone who is considered a licensed user? And as a guest user, I want to be able to send them a direct message. So we'll go through that as well as part of today's demonstration, right? Once again, for those of you just joining us, very warm welcome to this demo workshop. The focus of today's workshop is the guest portal access. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the QA chat box. Alternatively, we'll spend a bit of time towards the end of the session to look at any questions you might have and be able to answer those. By way of the demo workshops, we will be orchestrating another workshop towards the end of the month, February 20th, where we'll focus our attention on the project archiving feature in Birdview. And that will essentially be the end of these workshops. We'll take a bit of a hiatus, and then we'll come back in the not too distant future to revisit these weekly workshops again. All right. So with that said, I will be logging into our own demo instance. This instance is labeled Success Birdview. So as a resource that is licensed, this is the area that you're typically going to be working with. And then I'm using Microsoft Edge, logging into the same instance, but as a guest user. The guest user is Mike, the guest user. I've got this user set up, and you're getting to see sort of the difference in visuals when you log in as a guest user and when you're logging in as a licensed user in Birdview. So we've already touched on the benefits. The key benefit, of course, being it's a free license. You can add umpteen number of licenses to your instance. Anytime you are tasked with adding a guest user, so if I go into my company settings, I go into users, I go into guest users, this is where I would essentially begin by inviting and adding a guest user into the system. So a couple of key things to pay attention to here. A guest user can most certainly be part of a team, that an existing team that you have set up in your business. They could be assigned unique skills. And then you're starting to see some of these other custom fields, which are specific to custom fields that perhaps are inclined more to your business, where you're tracking work center, maybe cost center codes, department codes. These are just some of those custom fields, but you can extend those custom fields to guest users if you so need to, if your business requires you to track that, right? But again, you're using this information as informational purposes or for consumption purposes. It is not being captured in any kind of reporting metrics. It is purely for consumption purposes. As we scroll down the list, the guest user can potentially have a personal schedule, but you're not really assigning and tracking workload against these guest users. So we're often asked, can I stipulate a work schedule for guest users? Yes, by all means you can. Maybe you have a guest user that is an extension of your own existing business, but they only really need to access the system just by way of collaborating on a specific task. And that's where maybe you want to just be able to take a look behind the scenes of what their overall availability is. But for an actual guest user, a client, a supplier, a vendor that you're potentially collaborating with, we're not going to do too much information if you do specify personal scheduled hours here. Now, that being said, very important to keep in mind, a guest user, when you click on the ellipsis icon, can very quickly and easily be converted into a regular licensed user. As long as you have an available license, I've got about from 25 out of 50, I've got plenty of licenses available. I can use one-click options and go through that conversion process right from within the application as an administrative user of the system. I can take a look at security logs. I can see some of the assigned activities that this guest user is working on. If for some reason you need to send them a password, you can go ahead and use the generate email password. A guest user you are done collaborating with, perhaps it was a vendor, it was a supplier, and the project is closed. Be very thoughtful and mindful to come back here and limit their access into the system. So always make sure if you're done dealing with a specific client, vendor, any guest user, the project is signed, sealed, delivered, closed. Be proactive, come here and turn off the canned login so you don't inadvertently grant someone access to a particular project or a task that they shouldn't really be involved in, right? And if they're you're said and done, then just make them inactive. For this example, we're going to keep Mike, the guest user, on. Now, what are you exactly collaborating with? So on the front end of the system, I've got a project here. The project has a series of activities. I have the ability to add this particular resource, create a new site. I have a task. For this specific task, I need the approval of the guest resource that I'm collaborating with. So I'm typically going to start with providing the task with a start date and an end date. And then when it comes to assigning a resource, I will assign the guest resource. If it needs to be a licensed user, you're more than welcome to do so. So when assigning a guest user, keep in mind the guest user has some predefined permissions or presets. Their job role is automatically reflected as a guest. If I come into the project level and I'm looking at my project level details, unlike a licensed user, you can navigate between the job roles. You also have the ability to control the access levels, maybe change permissions. However, does not apply to a guest resource. If you're clicking on the guest, it is completely blocked for you. If you're ever wondering what the guest permissions entail, this is it at a bird's eye view. Right? It is very, very linear. The only ability that the guest user has is the ability to add an activity. You're not going to be able to change any of this on the front end, but that is essentially it. And as far as the role is concerned, it's pre-baked, predefined, hard-coded, if you will, and its title is guest. So adding a resource, what are we adding it to? A specific task. By virtue of design, they automatically roll up to become a project member. Now that I've added this resource to this specific activity, let's go ahead. We'll change gears here and visuals. We'll go to the Microsoft Edge view. Here I'm logged into a separate browser just because I want to still be able to log in into the Success Birdview instance. One of the first things your guest portal experience, if the specific resource, the guest resource had collapsed the browser, we would use the bubble notification and we would be able to prompt them that a new notification has been received. Alternatively, very similar to how a licensed user has the notifications, you've got that exact same panel here. So top right corner, the bell icon is your notifications module. The counter at the top suggests that, Mike, the guest user, you've received a new notification. Click on it, and we are presented with that notification page. So again, very similar to what you would see as a licensed user. They do have access to the 3 folders, the inbox folder with the counter option, letting them know that a new task activity has been assigned to this particular resource. We're not assigning them to a project, but to a specific task. However, they can click on the hyperlink and get to see the task level details. And yes, they will get to see any of the custom fields, but can they change the values of the custom fields? No, they cannot. They can view the information that's already predefined in there. Here's a custom field with a predefined value. They're not going to be able to modify that. They can click on it all they want, but there's no ability for them to be able to edit that. They can add comments, by all means, in adding information here to support that collaboration between guest and a licensed user. In this case, Fabian is that licensed user and Mike is the guest user. On the same token, when they click on the hyperlink for the project itself, they get the embedded view of project level information. So if you had custom field information defined here, they would get to see that information too. So very, very important to pay attention to that. And at the same time, too, any comments that you are sharing as you're collaborating internally, your client, Mike, the guest user in this instance, will have visibility into those comments, but not at the project level. At the task level, they get to access the message board. Okay, but they are able to see those custom fields. Now, when you are working within the application itself, what are some of those UI UX changes that we're talking about? These icons have changed maybe in the last 3 to 4 months, where you are seeing that same exact icon appear in your My Assignments page. So I'm going to flip screens here. If I'm looking at a licensed user login, I get to see the My Assignments, which for a guest user is indicative of access to the guest portal. The notification bell icon, very, very similar to what you're seeing here. And right now we don't display the approval request, but if there was an approval that was initiated, so let's go through the initiation of an approval at a task level. I'm going to invite the specific resource to approve an image. So we'll identify our image, we'll identify our approver, and our approver in this instance is going to be Mike, the guest approver. And I'm going to go ahead and post. I'm going to switch screens. And here, if I just quickly refresh the page, I will be able to click on the guest portal. When I click on the guest portal, here is where I get to see information about the specific task. I will be able to click on that. I'll be able to get to see the information about that specific activity. And if there was a specific task where there was an approval that was called upon, we'll be able to get to see that approval here as well. So let's just quickly take a look, making sure that the status is set up. I've got my approver. I'm going to just take a quick look here, and there it is. So I've got my specific task. I've got a notation here with the counter. I'm going to go ahead, directly click on it, and there is that approval. Mike as a guest user has the ability to annotate the image. So we do give them the ability to annotate. And what do we mean by annotation? Logo needs to move to the left and comment. You're annotating in real time. Those exchange of information can be shared by with the licensed user, Fabian in this case. If all goes well and this logo now is more than likely going to be rejected, there'll be a rejection there. If I flip screens, I get to refresh this page and I'll be able to see that there's a comment. And as I refresh this page, I'm probably also going to be notified that I have made an error and there's more than likely a rejection. When did that rejection take place? A minute ago. So you are collaborating effectively in real time. I'm just using the refresh button here to expedite this. But that is the key of working with collaborator licenses, guest licenses. Now, one of the things that I did mention is the ability to use the @ symbol to be able to post direct messages. If you can, as a good business practice, say, Mike, whenever you need to send me a direct message, this is my username in Birdview. It can be very explicit or as simple as that comment that I just made. And what Mike does is he will use the @ symbol @Fabian, just the way that we communicated. Can we debrief on this later today? And I can post. The expectation now is that this matches with the username that I have shared with Mike, the guest user, and I'm going to post this. And invariably, in real time, I will be able to see this information appear here. I see this as a notification, and there is that comment. It was a direct message shared by Mike, the guest user. Can we debrief on this particular task later today? So very, very important in terms of a nugget to ensure that when you are collaborating, and especially if you're collaborating with several users on a specific task, licensed users, be sure to let them know that if you need to send me a direct message, this is my username. If they cannot already identify that information based on this username that appears here. Okay. Then the guest user also has the ability to leverage custom forms within the tool. So when it comes to custom forms, we've got custom forms that are flagged on the front end of the system to be made available to guest licenses. So what are we talking about here? Let's go to the custom form. And if I have a specific custom form that I have identified as being made available, allow guest users to access this form, this is the flag that makes it visible in the guest portal. If this flag is disabled, the form is not available to a guest user. What other functionality does a guest user have leverage to is the shared project snapshots. So when we talk about project snapshots, you're sharing a snapshot that you have captured on a specific project. So if I were to go to the activity center and I've taken a snapshot for this particular guest overview project, I am capturing the snapshot. Every time I create a snapshot, it is housed in the project snapshot folder. There is that snapshot that we've taken today, the one for guest overview. You always want to precede it with the date that you've taken. You're going to click the ellipsis icon, and then you're going to choose the option that says share with a guest. Here, we allow you to define which guest user you want to be able to share it with. Click on apply, and then immediately this guest user, when they go into their shared project snapshot, have visibility into that snapshot that was taken. Now, very, very important to keep in mind, the snapshot that you've taken is not a dynamic snapshot. It's static. So you'll set up a cadence maybe once every 3 weeks to refresh and send them a new snapshot. But it's a static shot that you've taken. They'll be able to look at this information that you had chosen to capture in your snapshot. Lastly, when working on the guest portal, as guest resources, they do have the ability to customize the experience in the tool by paying close attention to the fact that they can reorder some of these columns. So that was one of the asks that we had previously. Is there a way for our guest users to be able to reorder some of these columns? So that experience has now been provided to them. You can set up your order of project, the activity. If there is a customer reference there, that customer information will be available. The status, the priority level, whatever you set the priority level to be, any dates. Now, their grouping option will typically default to group by end date because we want to be able to use that same functionality that you leverage in the tool as a licensed user to be able to see overdue tasks sitting right at the top. Another common trend that we see is group by project, which is great. They get to see the project, they get to see the specific task that they have been assigned to in terms of collaboration. When you are using the group by end date, I think here is more logical because tasks that are potentially overdue sit at the top. Those that are due today are there, and then later, and potentially those that are ongoing. We will also display those that don't have a start date or an end date, because activities without an end date, you can turn on this particular toggle and you'll get to see that information here as well. Sorting, we sort between active versus completed. So there's your sort option. And remember, your guest users also have a way to collaborate with you by adding an activity. So add an activity, they have the ability to add two distinct activities, not a task, but a request or an issue. Put in their activity name, identify the request, and then for project, this is whichever project that they have been assigned to or they're collaborating with you on. Put in a start date, end date, fill out all these fields, save it, and they'll be able to push this over. Now, you as a project manager, if you are inviting clients to take the opportunity to log requests, to log issues, you need to do this one very important thing. If you come into your specific project and you go into your project details, we have the ability to identify the auto assignment. So when a new issue gets created, when a new request gets created, more than likely by your guest users, because if that's what you've communicated with them, you want to be in the know. So if Mike creates a new request, Fabian will be notified. Test during the demo. We're going to do it by guest portal overview. We're doing it for today, and we'll say it's going to take 2 days. Save. Okay. Now, if I come back into the system, I'm going to refresh my page just for the purposes of this, the time limit here. I'm going to see another request that has come through and I'm already pre-assigned to it. Now I can look at this information and I know exactly who I possibly need to delegate this request to. I can remove myself as the assigned user and then potentially assign it to another user in the organization. All right. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the guest portal in a gist. I'm going to open the floor to any questions. Okay. So in terms of our upcoming workshops, we do have another workshop slated for the 20th. That will be the last such workshop for right now, until we hear different from our leadership and management team about how we strategize moving ahead with these workshops. This is in fact quite a good turnout, so thank you very much for that. We have it slated for project archiving. We have our webinars that will continue. Our webinars are slated to be once every quarter, so you'll receive more information about that if you'd like to join that in due time. Right. Okay, we've got a couple questions here. In terms of the title, it is a 250 character limitation. So The first question here is there a character limitation on reporting an issue? It is 250 characters. Okay. Then the next question is, will the tagging ever become automatic for guest users? I mean, allowing them to select from a list. They can only collaborate with, I presume you are referring to the ability to identify from this list, Sama? Are you referring to the app mention? Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, this is, it's not going to be automatic at the moment. You do have to specify, but it is great feedback. I can take that back to the product team and they can evaluate that for future enhancements. Okay, another question that we've got here is, can we customize the guest portal view so that there is a standard view when clients first log in? Now, unlike a licensed user, the client is limited to the guest portal view. There's not the functionality of the save view like a licensed user would. So unfortunately, you can't set up any predefined defaults. This bookmark option is only available to a licensed user. Is the company admin the only one to add guests? Well, if you have the user permission, so it's not only bound to the company administrator, that's a very good question. If you have the permission to invite a user, an invitation of the user can mean a regular licensed user or a guest user. So pay close attention. I can click on invite user and I'm brought up to this screen. If I have a regular license that I wish to do, maybe someone within the organization, but in a different department that's not using the system right now, or a guest user, the invite user function, if it's attached to your access level, you will be able to invite a user. It's not deemed that it should only be managed by the system admin. It comes down to the permission of invite user that's attached to your access level. Okay. I believe we've answered all the questions there. Right, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll share a copy of this recording. Our marketing team will. I'm basically filling in for Mishna. So for those of you that were looking for Mishna, I do apologize. She is away at the moment, so filling in for her. Thank you. Have yourselves a lovely afternoon, and we'll see you back for the next one. Bye now.